My name is Jason Teller. I work on the Lightning Flow PM team. With me here is Karen Fredelic. She works in the Salesforce DX PM team, and we are here to talk about Salesforce DX, rapid development, and Lightning Flow. Now, before I get started, I really want to say thank you to everyone here, to our customers and our partners who are joining us here today. Without you, we couldn't build all these amazing products, and without your support, we couldn't have this extravaganza that we call Dreamforce. So thank you again. Now, I'd like to get a show of hands. Can you throw me up a shaka if you've ever used Flow before? A couple of you, that's awesome. For the rest of you, I think you should pay heed to what I said last year in my talk. You got to hele ante kahe, get going on Flow. It's probably the best choice you'll ever make, I guarantee it. And that makes you part of our Flow HANA. And as part of our Flow HANA, I just want to say mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much for being part of the Flow HANA. It is due to your support and your energy that we're able to build these amazing Lightning Flow products. And so let's get into all the exciting stuff that we have to talk about today. Now, one thing that Flow HANA always pay heed to is the forward-looking statement. We know that you love our vision, but of course, please make all your purchasing decisions based on our current product catalog. All right, let's get into it. So today's customers expect seamless experiences. 89% of companies compete on the basis of experience, the customer experience. Customers expect to get an update on their watch. They expect to be able to replace a credit card with a tap on their mobile portal. And if you watched the keynote yesterday, they expect to be able to order a macchiato with their voice. My favorite sort of example of a seamless experience is that I actually had to catch a flight the other day, and when I was sitting at lunch about to head to the airport, I got a notification on my phone. And the notification said that my flight was going to be delayed. Well, would I like to rebook myself on a different flight? So I tapped the notification, selected a seat, got rebooked on a different flight, had some dessert because I had a few extra minutes, got in my car, went to the airport, and then when I got to the airport, the boarding pass was already loaded up. I passed through security, got onto the plane, flew off to my destination, and when I got to my destination, the original flight that I was on still hadn't taken off. That's a great feeling. And that is the kind of seamless experience that people talk about when they talk about seamless experiences. If your company is talking about consumerization of IT, that is the bar that's being set at. When you want to consumerize IT, this is the kind of seamless experience that people are talking about. Now, whenever you look at a seamless experience, as soon as you start to go a little bit deeper, you realize that behind a seamless experience is a process. Something as simple as I need to replace my credit card may seem like, oh, tap on the mobile portal, card notification, card's on its way, everything's great. But as any of us knows, something that easy and that seamless has a fair amount of complexity behind it. And that complexity is encapsulated in a process. Something as simple as I need to replace my credit card, well, maybe the credit card's damaged. In that case, you can go ahead and confirm the address, ship out a new card. But what if it's been stolen? Well, you may have to dispute transactions. If you dispute transactions, it may have been stolen in a foreign country. If it's stolen in a foreign country, you need to change the address that you sent it to. A lot of different things need to happen. And you want to have a consistent customer experience. That's where the process comes in. When we talk to our customers, we realize that a lot of them struggle to automate these business processes. You don't want a disconnected experience like what you see on the left here. You want that seamless experience, but in order to do that, you have to create process logic. That takes time. You have to, of course, integrate all these different systems because your data is sort of in different places. That takes coding. You have to build a beautiful UX. That takes more time. And then, once you have that beautiful UX, you need to add it to all the correct customer touch points in order for it to be capable of producing a seamless experience, and that takes additional coding. So in the face of all of this, we introduced Lightning Flow at Trailhead DX this year. Lightning Flow is the ability to build rich and dynamic app experiences with declarative process automation. It runs on our current Flow engine, which services over 100 billion transactions a month. It leverages two tools, Process Builder, which is an if this, then that sort of back-end tool, and then it also leverages our Cloudflare Designer, which is actually going to be replaced by our new Flow Builder pretty soon. One of the big things we did to add to this feature set is the ability to incorporate Lightning Flow components, or Lightning components, inside of our actual Flow screens. And what that allows you to do is to provide you with a reusable set of components to create an engaging visual experience. We also have the ability to integrate different processes with different third-party systems, and we've created a Flow ecosystem to allow you to do that. Last week, we actually announced our flow solutions on the App Exchange. These are partner-built flow actions, we call them, that are essentially installable and then drag and droppable from the palette into a flow, so you can directly use that type of integration. With this, you can orchestrate workflows and third-party services, and you can also do integrations with platform events, external services, as well as what we call local actions, which are browser-based calls to third-party systems. The net of this is that you can embed these processes in every customer app and experience, and as a result, you have process-driven apps, kind of like the mobile portal you see on the left, or the console screen you see in the middle of your screen here. So we basically provide everything you need to create this seamless experience. You create the process logic using Flow Builder and our recently introduced in summer debugger. You can integrate your systems through all the different features that I mentioned. We are actually in winter introducing a set of flow screen components as part of our UX building efforts, which allow you to then drag and drop these screen components onto the screen to jumpstart your ability to create that engaging visual experience. And as far as adding it to every touch point, if you've ever opened up Lightning App Builder or Community Builder, all you have to do is drag and drop the flow component into your page, select the flow you want, and there you have a flow right there. Now, of course, you can also use quick actions, so if you want a button to go ahead and trigger a flow or process, you can do that, as well as having it in the utility bar. When it pops up, it'll go ahead and run the flow that you want there as well. The net of that, of course, is that you reduce the amount of time and the amount of code you need to set up all of these declaratively set up all of these dynamic app experiences. Now, we've been extremely successful with this effort. In terms of customer adoption, we have over 500 plus production orgs using Lightning Flow with custom Lightning screens. Here's a sort of a cycle of a number of them. One thing you may notice when you actually look at the companies that are going past here, a number of them are actually pretty large enterprises. So this sort of begs the question, what happens when you have a large enterprise with a distributed development team and you have admins that want to configure and build processes in this sort of declarative manner? How do I get these two to work together? Well, as it turns out, the Lightning platform has a solution for you. We have all the tools that you need to have admins and developers work together. And in point of fact, Lightning Flow is probably one of the best examples of how you can do this. Things like Lightning components can be created by a development team, and as I mentioned, all this reuse can then be leveraged by the admins to build out different processes or flows, and the configuration can be done by the admins, which gives you a very high level of agility. All the different pieces of the Lightning platform can be used in conjunction with each other to deliver this sort of dynamic app building experience. Now, one of the things that we do hear about is, well, we have admins, we have developers, and what about CI/CD? What about my continuous integration, continuous delivery experience? How do I actually get that to work in this sort of building relationship? Well, when you talk about CI/CD and you talk about Salesforce, you generally are talking about SFDX. And so here to talk to us about SFDX is Karen.
Great. Thank you, Jason. My name is Karen Fidelic. I'm one of the product managers on our Salesforce DX product. I'm going to give you a quick overview today of what Salesforce DX is all about. We're going to look at it hands-on in a demo, and then I've got some more resources at the end where we can get more information and keep you learning about Salesforce DX. So in a nutshell, Salesforce DX is our suite of products and tools and methodologies that provide a complete development experience on our Lightning platform. Salesforce DX is built upon some principles that support modern development, namely team collaboration, automation, and enterprise ready. When we talk about team collaboration, we're not only talking about groups of developers, multiple developers working within a single environment or maybe sets of environments, but also different types of developers. So this is really important. We want to make sure that regardless of whether you're a no-code or low-code or pro-code developer, you can work together within a single environment in a continuous delivery model. Automation, repeatability are key. Our tools provide automation capabilities to support source control and continuous integration and continuous delivery. We have capabilities that support change and release management so that we can repeatedly and reliably release and develop software. So application lifecycle management, otherwise known as ALM, is built up of phases of a design flow that include planning and coding and building and testing and releasing. This should sound familiar to you as developers. Within the center, at the core of this process is source, your source, ideally in a controlled source repository. And then around and supporting this process are tools. And these tools include things like CLIs and IDEs for the design phase of this process. Development environments, different kinds of environments depending on the phase of this process that you're in. So we have development environments, we have test environments, we have production environments, and these are delivered through scratch orgs and sandboxes and production orgs that we deliver. We support, like I mentioned, continuous integration, continuous delivery through the automation and the scripting that we provide. And finally, we support different types of release mechanisms around, including packaging and change sets. So these are some of the examples. One of the key principles of Salesforce DX is that it is tool agnostic. So for instance, with source control or continuous integration, continuous delivery, we want you to bring your tools, your favorite tools that you know and love, Git, Jenkins, Circle CI. And the automation and the commands and the scripting that we provide will allow you to integrate with those tools. We are not actually creating our own CI tools. We're creating an infrastructure that allows you to use CI within this overall environment. And then finally, I also like to point out that this may appear to be overwhelming. There's a lot here, and our goal is to provide a complete development experience. But that's not to say that you have to bite it all off. So you may be looking at this going like, this is nothing like what I do today. I cannot adopt this. And the key here is it's up to you to pick and choose which pieces of this make sense for you, for your team, in the phase of the design flow that you're in, and do what's right for you. We're going to give you a little example here today to give you a taste. But you could get started with the CLI. You could do metadata deploy like you do today through our new CLI. You could start dabbling with scratch orgs, and so there's bits and pieces that you can pick up. In the demo today, we're going to be using our Salesforce CLI. We're going to be using that within VS Code, Visual Studio Code. We're going to be creating and using a couple different types of scratch orgs, or different scratch orgs for different types of environments for development and testing. We've also got a production org that we're going to be using. We're going to be using our new unlocked packaging capability to deliver and release updates that we're making. And through this all, we'll be able to see how this can be built around a continuous development, continuous integration model. Okay, so Salesforce DX provides basically two development models. The first we're calling org-based development, and this is probably what you would be familiar with if you've been using Salesforce. So this is where development is done in sandboxes. Changes are promoted through sandboxes and into production via change sets. So this is kind of model one. We're also now supporting and promoting a package-based development model, is what we call it. And you may hear packages, and you may think, I'm not an ISV. I don't need to worry about packages. I only think about packages when I install something from the App Exchange. We have a new capability called Unlock Packages, which maybe you've heard about here, which brings packaging to everyone. So the idea here is source can be controlled in a source repository, and through unlocked packages, we can manage source, we can manage changes to source, we can manage iterations and versions of bundles of source, and be able to move those through our different environments in a very repeatable way. And we're going to see that in action here in a minute. Okay, so with that, I'm going to have Jason kick off the intro to the demo.
Cool, thanks, Karen. So I'm going to walk you through a bit of what Karen just described and what we're going to be doing with our demo here while Karen goes ahead and gets things set up. So as you can see here, this is sort of a simplified diagram of what Karen just showed. We have three environments. We have a scratch org, where we basically do our development. We have an integration environment where the testing happens, and then the actual production environment. Now, in this particular demo, I'm going to be representing the admin in this situation, and I need to go ahead and build flows and process builder processes, and then I need to understand how that actually gets out into production. Karen's going to be doing all the heavy lifting, which means she will represent development, DevOps, as well as IT, a lot more people than me. So in this particular demo, I, as an admin, want to know, well, where do I go ahead and build my flow and my process builder to get it out into production? So I'm given a scratch org, which is basically a development environment. All I need to know is I'm going to go ahead and build my flow for the visual front end and my process builder for the back end inside of this particular environment. Karen is then going to take this flow and process builder and put it into the version control system. From the version control system, she can then package it up and put it into our integration test environment. And this is where we get to test out the changes that I got to make and see if everything makes sense. Now, in this particular demo, it would be interesting if we didn't have to make a version change. And so we're going to go ahead and say, well, it didn't quite cut it in the integration test environment. We actually have to make a change to the flow. So now I am the admin. What do I do? Well, it's pretty simple. I go back to the environment that I built the flow on, and I create a new version of the flow. That's my new version. That's the one I want to have go out there. So Karen can then take that new version, stick it in the version control system, repackage it up, send it back out into the integration test environment, and then we can check it out and say, does that make sense? Is that what we wanted? In this particular case, we say, yes, that is what we wanted, so let's go ahead and deploy it to production. The one thing about deploying to production is you have to run tests. So we go ahead and have the tests that run, and then it makes it into the production environment. So that's the end-to-end of what we're about to show you. There's a fair amount of sort of CLI in there, so I wanted you to guys get the high-level picture before we sort of jump into it. Now, there's a few things that we needed to do with Flow in order to make sure that this actually works with a CI/CD setup. Some of the best practices for CI/CD are, of course, leveraging a version control system, making sure you have a deployable packaging mechanism, requiring tests for all code that's being packaged and deployed, and then making sure that these packages are actually active when you deploy them into a particular environment. So in the Flow case, we made a few changes in our winter release. The first is that the flow and process metadata file names no longer change with the version. So when you pull a file out, it will have the same version name. So this makes it work with the version control system. As far as packaging goes, we already have our packaging mechanisms. You can use the SFDX scratch orgs like Karen was mentioning, or you can do metadata as well. In terms of being able to deploy something as active, we have now enabled an opt-in setting on process automation settings. So when you click on this setting, you can then deploy flows as active. Now, if you actually click on this setting and you can deploy flows as active, you also have to have 75% test coverage on the processes that you are deploying. This matches Apex's 75% code coverage, test coverage as well. Now, if you don't want to do this, you don't check on the box, nothing changes. Your life just sort of goes on. But if you want to go ahead and engage in a CI/CD type environment, you can click on this setting, opt-in, and all this should work for you. So with all of that in mind, let's get into the nuts and bolts of the demo. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Karen.
Does that look okay from the back? Can you guys see that? Yeah? Okay. Great. So I'm going to start by just kind of overviewing the different environments that we've got here. We have here, what you're looking at is a development environment. This is a scratch org that I've created. We also have an integration environment, which we're going to be doing our testing in. We also have a production environment, a production org here. Let me talk a little bit more about what we've got in each one. This, as I mentioned, is a scratch org that I created for Jason to work within. This is where he went in and declaratively created a flow. What you see here, this hello world screen flow, is the flow that Jason created. He created this screen flow here. We can interact with it. What it's doing, it's got a, it's got a process builder flow backing it. And what it's doing is it's creating accounts. That process is creating accounts. And each one of these accounts, if you click into it, is also having a hello world message posted to its chatter feed. Okay? So this is the little flow that Jason created. Looks like it's doing what he wanted here. In our integration environment, that flow doesn't exist yet. This is a new environment that we've created to do our testing in. This could be used in a continuous integration test flow. And it's not here yet. So that's part of what we're going to show, is getting that flow moved into this environment. And then in our production environment, we've got an earlier, older version of this hello world flow here that needs to be updated once we get through this whole process. All right. So now we're going to go look at what this looks like as we take the source and move it through the different environments. So at this point, Jason has let me know that he's ready and he's done his work. So now I'm going to go into Visual Studio Code here. This is an IDE that's been developed by Microsoft. We've developed extensions for it that allow us to use our SFDX CLI within it, and we've got all the commands. We've got command shortcuts and things within here. What I've done already is I've created a SFDX project, which you can see right here. This is our project directory. We have a project file. I've actually already gone and pulled, and I'm going to show you how this works in just a minute, but what I've already done in this case is pulled the source that Jason created for these flows. And so what we've got is a force-app source directory here. This gets created when we create this SFDX project. We can see in here the metadata that represents the source that Jason created for these flows. We also have a SFDX project file. This gets created when this project is created. It's fairly simple right now. It's not got much in it. Basically, it's pointing to our source directory. Okay, so now I've got all this source locally. This source, again, is in a repository that can now go in and out of a source control system like Git. Once we're satisfied with it, we'll push it back into Git, okay? So the first thing that I need to do now is take his changes and move them into our integration environment. And we're going to do that using our new packaging capabilities called Unlock Packaging. What we're doing here is we're creating a package. And this is a container that's going to contain the source of this Hello World flow. The package itself is basically, like I said, it's a container, which will then be able to create versions and iterations of that we can then move through our different environments. So we've got a package created here, and you may notice that this project file was automatically updated with reference to this package. It's now part of this overall project. Okay, this is all happening automatically. At this point, I'm going to now create a package version. So this is creating the first iteration of this package, of this set of source that we're going to move through our environments. Now this command is going to take a minute or so, so I'm going to go and work out of a baked version that we've got. It's kind of like, the cooking show here. So we've got a ready version of our project that if we look at this project file, we can see we've got the package version, which contains the same source has already been created here. So now I'm going to install through a simple package install command here, referencing the integration org. You can see that here. That's where I'm going to install it to. And the package name with the associated version is listed here. So what this is going to do is take that first version of the project, of the package, which has the version of the flow that Jason created, and it's going to go through an installation process and put it into our integration org now. So everything we'd been pulling from previously was the development org. Okay, so now we're going to just wait for it to complete. It's completed. It's now installed in our integration org. And if we go look at that here and we hit refresh, we should see this update. And now we see the flow that Jason created in our integration org. Okay, simple commands. I didn't have to know anything specifically about the source that he created. A few simple commands, and now I've pushed this in here. So at this point, we're going to do testing, right? This could be manual testing. This could be testing amidst other code that other developers have created that I've been able to also push into this integration org. This could also be automated. Everything I've done so far is through CLI commands. So this could be automated through a CI system where we run tests here to determine if we're ready to push this into production. So we're going to do some testing here. And let's assume at this point that we've actually found a problem with this flow. And there happens to be a missing field. We're asking the user how much hello, but what we want to know is why. Tell me why you've rated your hello what you have. So I'm going to send this back to Jason now, and he's going to come in, and he's going to come back into the flow designer here. Would you like to talk? Or would you like me to talk?
So yeah, basically I'm the admin now. We need to actually add a field to ask people, why are they doing this, right? So we're going to go ahead and insert text box here at the bottom, and then I decide what I want this text box to say. So tell me why. That would be good to know. And then all I have to do is save that as a new version. And then I go back and I activate this newly updated flow that I have. Okay, so now the active version of the flow is version 2, as I described earlier. And that, as an admin, is all I have to do. I'm given an environment, I make the change. Now what?
Okay, so just to prove what he just did, we're going to refresh the home screen here. Again, this is the development environment that Jason's working within. He's now said, Karen, I'm good to go. So I'm going to come back into my CLI here, and now I'm going to run a command called pull, source pull. This is one of the greatest things there is about Salesforce DX. We have implemented a source tracking capability within Scratch orgs that allows us to keep track of changes that happen within the org versus local. So changes could be happening locally, changes could be happening in the Scratch org, and we're able to keep track of that. And this is what allows us the ability to either push or pull changes from and to that Scratch org. So I simply ran this source pull command pointing at the development org that Jason's working in, and it pulled down the one change file, which is that hello world flow. Again, I didn't need to know anything about what he did. He just had to tell me go, and then I was able to pull this. And I could be a machine who's doing this, right? So that's really key. So if we look at this flow file now, this metadata file again, we can just verify that it is in fact the updated version. So we can see this tell me why field here that's now in this file. This file hasn't changed the name. Again, really important from a source control standpoint. It's just a new version of this same file. I also want to point out that we are deploying active flows here. So the flow is active, and we're deploying and updating flows in place as they're active. And in order to do that, we've added a new field within our metadata to control the active state of that flow. And that's what we see here. So at this point, I've got this source local. Now what do I need to do? I need to push this now again into our integration org. And so I'm going to run that same exact package version create command that we ran previously. Go ahead and do this. And this command is now, like I mentioned earlier, creating a second version. So if we look at this ready package that we had earlier, we see two versions here. The version name, the alias name of the second version is automatically created and incremented when this command is run. So if you'll notice, I ran exactly the same command. I didn't need to, again, name anything, point at anything special. It's pulling from that same source directory. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back to my ready project and push that second version of the package version into, again, our integration org. And again, what this is doing is it's just taking that second version, which is an iteration, and installing it. Now, if we decided that after the second version goes in that we don't like it, we can go back to the first version. The first version is still there. It's an artifact that's ready and able to be installed. Okay, so that installation is complete. If we go now and look at our integration org again and we reload, we should see a new tell me why field. Okay, so really super simple. Let's just kind of recap and refresh what we just saw. I'm the IT person, I'm DevOps. I know nothing about the actual application that Jason's building. I'm controlling the release of these pieces of development that are coming in from multiple locations. Jason's doing his work. He's telling me when he's ready. I'm pulling it. I'm pushing it into second integration org, getting ready to push it into production. not needing to know anything about the changes that he made, and all of this is fully automatable. So you can see how this could work within a continuous integration and deployment model. Okay, so at this point, we would finish our testing, and then we would say, okay, now we're ready to go to production. So I'm going to go back into our CLI here, and I'm going to actually run a metadata deploy. I want to highlight one of the new features that Jason also just referenced, which is the ability to deploy active flows into production orgs, and the requirement along with that to have tests that have provide enough adequate test coverage for those flows. So if we look at our production org here, again, we have an older version of this Hello World app here, or this Hello World flow. We're going to go, and I'm going to show you what this preference looks like that we were looking at. So process automation settings is where it lives. And if we look in here, we'll see this new, we see this here, preference called deploy processes and flows as active. So this allows us to opt in to the ability to deploy active flows. And when we do that, we are required, as we've mentioned, to have adequate test coverage. So I'm going to go back here, and now I'm going to run a metadata deploy command. And I've got a directory already created that's got our metadata that's been converted from our source. You can see here that I'm deploying to our production org, and I'm referencing our local metadata directory where our metadata source resides. This is going to run our metadata API directly from the CLI. I mentioned this earlier. This is a really great way to get started with the CLI if you're not ready to maybe change your whole development models. You can run deployments directly from our CLI using exactly the same kind of commands that you would have done from the AMP migration tool. So it failed. We were actually expecting that, so it's okay. So the reason it failed is that we don't have tests right now, and you can see that we don't have any tests being run. And that's just to kind of highlight again that we do need tests to be run and providing adequate coverage of the flows that we're deploying. So we have some Apex tests ready to go here. This is the test that's going to test that process builder flow. I'm going to go right now and just actually move this set of classes directly into our metadata deploy directory. And so now we can see that in here along with the other metadata that we're deploying. I'm going to update our package manifest file here to reference the Apex class that we've got. Oops. So I'm just going to kind of do a little copy paste here, use a wildcard, and reference the Apex class metadata type. We're going to go ahead and save that. And now I'm just going to run that same exact command again. And this time it should deploy. We're going to see that those tests get run. And because those tests get run and we've got the coverage that we need, that deploy should be successful. I'll give this just a minute here. And tests total, complete, success. So you can see that our process builder test has been run, our deployment is successful, and if we go back to our production org here and do one final refresh, we should now see in production this updated flow. So we've gone through the whole chain now, the whole pipeline from development all the way through to production. With that, that is our demo. And again, I think I just want to highlight here the opportunity for automation throughout this entire flow, from development to people here, different levels of development experience, working together in a continuous development environment. Okay, so we're going to switch back now. Yep.
So that was really impressive. I don't know if you know, but it was real. Like each one of those orgs are real. That's a production org. So we gave you a live version of what you could actually do, and you could actually automate. So it isn't that hard. We did it right here, and it's pretty quick.
Cool. So a little bit more about where to go from here for Salesforce DX. We've got a lot of great resources out there. I want to highlight a few here. We have a really great trailhead trail These steps along the mountain here are the different modules within this trail. I would highly encourage you to look at this. We pretty much touched on all of these different topics throughout this talk, so if you want to get more learning on any one of these, please just dive into these trailhead modules. Also, I want to point out we've got an awesome developer blog series that's been put together by some of our developer evangelists. And we have one about getting started with DX. We also have one that's more focused on modular development and unlocked packaging. And so these are, I think they're like 5 blog article series each. Really provide some practical advice on how to actually get going with this with real designs. So highly would recommend those. And then finally, in our next 3 days here, we've got a lot of DX sessions going on. I picked and chose kind of some of the highlight ones here related to some of the stuff we've talked about. We've got things about using the CLI. We've got things about really understanding more about packaging, how to break up an existing org to take advantage of some of the packaging capabilities that we're offering, get more advanced with Apex and Apex testing. Please take a picture of this, because I don't think you can memorize it all right now. It's also in your schedules. We've also got a keynote. I think we're going to talk about it at the end, right? Yeah, so I don't need to mention that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so just really quick, I know we only have like a minute left. We got a lot of exciting stuff coming for Flow. In spring, we're looking to have pre-built processes and flows to allow you to have templates and pre-built Salesforce flows that allow you to then modify them as you need. So more and more of that sort of screen building, flow building experience that's pre-built for you. We want to do some flow simplification. We are looking to GA our new flow builder in spring. That's just the beginning of the journey. We want to make it 50% easier for you to build out your flows. And we also have more screen components coming. I highly recommend you check out our flow solutions in the App Exchange for additional flow actions. Some of the new screen components, lookup, record form component, address component, all this stuff you can drag and drop inside your flow screens. It's really cool. In summer, we want to support more infinite. We're calling it infinite objects. It's more external data types. Apex objects, Customer 360, Salesforce Connect. Basically integrate everything you need with Flow, all the technologies that I described. And then in the future, we'd like to do improved monitoring, testing, and analytics. Basically, your flow efficiency, what's your top flows, where are the abandonment rates, things like that. So lots to come. Stay tuned. We have a lot to show. Take a photo of this slide. We have a lot of sessions for Flow today and tomorrow, including a session that I'm doing tomorrow morning on orchestrations and integrations with Flow on the Lightning platform. Some really cool stuff there. We also have, and that's actually including Ticketmaster as a customer and showing some of what they did. We have a number of sessions on app dev with Flow, and then also a number of sessions on those Flow actions I talked about, so you can see the types of drag and drop integrations that we actually have. Here we got a photo. Tomorrow, we actually also have our developer keynote at 1 p.m., so I highly recommend you attend that as well. So with that, I just want to say mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much for coming. Ahoy ho. I hope to see you soon, maybe tomorrow at my session on orchestrations and integrations. Thank you very much. We're available for questions.